Joe Frazier, famously known as Smokin Joe, remains an icon in the world of boxing. As the former undisputed heavyweight champion and the first man to defeat Muhammad Ali, Frazier carved a legacy that transcends sports. At the time of his death in 2011, Joe Frazier's net worth was estimated to be around $100,000, a modest sum considering his once immense earnings from multi-million-dollar fight purses. Despite the fame, financial hardship followed Frazier into his final years, largely due to poor investments, generous handouts to friends and family, and legal disputes over property. Nonetheless, what he lacked in wealth, he made up for in respect, legacy, and honor, cementing his place as one of boxing's greatest warriors. Early life. Joseph William Frazier was born on January 12, 1944, in Beaufort, South Carolina, to Reuben Frazier and Dolly Frazier. He was the youngest of 12 children, and the family lived in extreme poverty on a farm, surviving off the land and the father's income from driving a mule cart and making moonshine. His father lost one arm in a farming accident shortly after Joe was born. Frazier's early life was defined by struggle and hardship. He began working at a young age, chopping wood, helping around the farm, and taking odd jobs to support his family. The brutal conditions of the South and frequent racism gave Joe an edge, toughness, and hunger to rise above his circumstances. Joe's formal education ended in the 9th grade. At the age of 15, he moved to New York City and shortly thereafter to Philadelphia, in search of work and a better life. He worked in a slaughterhouse, where he would punch slabs of meat, an activity that inspired the famous meat-punching scene in the film Rocky. It was in Philadelphia that Frazier began to hone his boxing skills at a police athletic league gym. Despite being short and stocky for a heavyweight, his devastating left hook and relentless forward pressure quickly stood out. Personal life. Joe Frazier married Florence Smith, and together they had 11 children. Their marriage ended in divorce, but Frazier remained closely connected with his children throughout his life. His most famous child, Marvis Frazier, followed in his father's footsteps and had a professional boxing career, although he never reached the same heights. Another of his children, Jackie Frazier-Lyde, also boxed professionally and famously fought Muhammad Ali's daughter, Layla Ali, in 2001. Frazier was known as a family man and maintained a long-term relationship with Denise Menz, with whom he lived for over 40 years. Though the couple never married, their bond remained unbroken until his death. In terms of faith, Frazier identified as a Christian, though he was not overtly public about his religious beliefs. His moral compass, discipline, and gratitude were frequently attributed to his strong upbringing and faith. Outside the ring, Frazier opened a boxing gym in Philadelphia called Joe Frazier's Gym, where he trained young fighters and gave back to the community. He later created the Joe Frazier Foundation, which aimed to uplift underprivileged youth through sports and mentorship. He also made occasional appearances in film, television, and commercials, often playing himself or providing commentary on boxing. Professional career, amateur career, and Olympic gold. Joe Frazier's amateur career took off in the early 1960s. His big break came when he was selected as a replacement for the 1964 U.S. Olympic boxing team. Despite a broken thumb, Frazier won the gold medal in the heavyweight division at the Tokyo Olympics, defeating Hans Huber of Germany in the final bout. That victory launched him into the spotlight and opened the door to his professional career, turning pro in early dominance. Frazier made his professional debut in 1965, quickly building a reputation as a ferocious body puncher with unrelenting pressure and a fearsome left hook. Between 1965 and 1969, he racked up a series of knockouts and decision wins over notable opponents, including Oscar Bonavena, George Chuvalo, and Buster Mathis. By 1970, following the retirement of Muhammad Ali due to draft evasion charges, Frazier was crowned WBA and WBC heavyweight champion after defeating Jimmy Ellis. But he didn't feel like a true champion until he could face Ali. The fight of the century. On March 8, 1971, Frazier faced Muhammad Ali at Madison Square Garden in what was dubbed the fight of the century. Both men were undefeated, and the hype was unparalleled. Over 300 million people watched globally. In a brutal 15-round war, Frazier floored Ali with his signature left hook in the final round and won a unanimous decision. It was the first defeat of Ali's professional career and Frazier's most iconic win, losing the title in the trilogy. Frazier's reign as champion ended in 1973 when he was overpowered by George Foreman in Kingston, Jamaica. Foreman knocked Frazier down 6 times in 2 rounds, leading to a decisive loss. Despite this setback, Frazier continued fighting. He faced Ali again in 1974, losing a decision in their second bout. Then came their third and final meeting in 1975, the Thrilla in Manila. Considered one of the most brutal fights in boxing history, the two legends went toe-to-toe in 100-degree heat for 14 grueling rounds. Frazier's eyes were swollen shut, and trainer Eddie Futch stopped the fight before the 15th round. Ali later admitted, "It was the closest thing to dying I've ever known." Frazier briefly retired after the Manila fight, but returned in 1981 for one final bout, drawing with journeyman Floyd Jumbo Cummings. He retired with a record of 32 wins, 27 by knockout, 4 losses, and 1 draw. Joe Frazier did not attend college, and he had no formal college boxing career. Like many athletes of his time from underprivileged backgrounds, Frazier transitioned directly from the amateur ranks into professional sports. His education came through life experience, the discipline of the gym, and the school of hard knocks. Though he lacked a degree, he would go on to train many young fighters who graduated from his gym with the strength and focus needed to succeed in life and boxing. House tour and car collection. In his later years, Joe Frazier lived in a modest apartment above his gym in North Philadelphia. Though he once lived more lavishly during his championship years, Frazier never fully enjoyed long-term wealth. A significant financial blow came from a real estate deal gone wrong, involving 140 acres of land in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which was tied up in legal disputes. Unlike other champions who flashed extravagant wealth, Frazier was never much for showing off. He did enjoy Cadillacs and muscle cars, and was occasionally seen driving older luxury vehicles, but his car collection was far from ostentatious. In his youth, he was once photographed with a customized black Cadillac Eldorado, emblematic of the flash and pride he briefly embraced. However, as years passed, Frazier became more reserved, focusing on his gym and charity work over material possessions. Cause of death. In September 2011, Joe Frazier was diagnosed with advanced liver cancer. The news shocked the boxing world. Despite his legendary toughness, the disease progressed rapidly. He passed away on November 7, 2011, at the age of 67, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His funeral drew tributes from boxing greats, celebrities, and fans worldwide. Muhammad Ali, once his fiercest rival, paid his respects, saying, "The world has lost a great champion. I will always remember Joe with respect and admiration." Though their rivalry was bitter and personal at times, Ali and Frazier ultimately shared a bond forged in war, each elevating the other to immortal status. Joe Frazier's impact on boxing and sports culture at large cannot be overstated. He was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1990. His trilogy with Muhammad Ali is still regarded as the greatest rivalry in boxing history. In 2015, after years of lobbying, the city of Philadelphia unveiled a bronze statue of Joe Frazier, located near the sports complex where he fought some of his most memorable bouts. It was a symbolic correction to the long-standing fact that the city had erected a statue of fictional boxer Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone, before honoring its real-life champion. Joe Frazier will always be remembered not just for his power and skill inside the ring, but for his humility, grit, and indomitable spirit. A fighter through and through, Smokin Joe never quit, even when the odds were against him.